This is Land of Havilah, 1 Samuel 4, verse 1. The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Comment. All Israel knows that Samuel is established as a prophet of Yahweh, as it just said at the end of the last chapter. Now coming up, here's how Yahweh fulfilled his word to Eli that his sons Hophni and Phinehas would both die in one day. Still in verse 1. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and encamped beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped in Aphek. Comment. Aphek and Ebenezer are near Samuel's birthplace in Mizpah. This will be the location of the battlefield, about 16 miles south of Shiloh, 1 Samuel 7:12. The Israelites are the underdogs here. They've been serving the Philistines in recent times, as we'll see coming up. Verse 2. The Philistines put themselves in array against Israel. When they joined battle, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men of the army in the field. Comment. Israel lost the battle and 4,000 men. Verse 3. When the people had come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, Why has Yahweh defeated us today before the Philistines? Let's get the ark of Yahweh's covenant out of Shiloh and bring it to us, that it may come among us and save us out of the hand of our enemies. Comment. We have to understand the ark here. It's a piece of furniture about the size of a blanket chest. It's made out of gold-plated wood with a solid gold lid. On the lid sit two winged creatures called cherubim, made of gold, facing each other, one on one end of the lid and the other opposite. The lid and the cherubim on it are one solid hammered piece of gold, Exodus 25:10 through 22. Normally the ark is in the tabernacle. The purpose of the tabernacle was to be a place that God would use to dwell with Israel, Exodus 25:8. And the lid of the ark is the focal point of the tabernacle. Yahweh had a particular presence there above the lid between the cherubim, Exodus 25:22. This doesn't imply that Yahweh is confined to any particular place. Starting with Genesis 1, it was understood that Yahweh is universal in nature, and he spoke to his prophets, starting with Adam, any place they happen to be, and there's no place in the universe that a person could go to escape Yahweh's presence, Psalm 139, 7 through 10. But he did have a particular presence above the lid on the ark between the cherubim, and that was his particular dwelling place with Israel. The tabernacle and everything in it, including the ark, are copies or representations or models of heavenly realities, Hebrews 8:5, 9:23, and Ezekiel 10:1 through 11:22. It would be impossible to fully and adequately make a model of God's dwelling place in heaven using objects made by men, but nevertheless Yahweh directed the design of the tabernacle and the objects in it for just that purpose. The ark is a model of the heavenly throne, and the cherubim on it are models of actual heavenly creatures that attend the throne. In addition to being the place of Yahweh's presence, the ark contains the two stone tablets with the 10 commandments that Yahweh wrote with his own finger, a golden pot of manna that Yahweh supplied in the wilderness, and Aaron's rod that budded, all of those items being tangible testament or testimony to God's presence with Israel. That's why it's sometimes called the Ark of Testimony. So if there's any one object that's the heart and core of Israel, it is no doubt, without question, the ark, and there isn't a close second. The ark is absolutely irreplaceable. Moses and Joshua put the ark out front to protect Israel as they moved through the desert, Numbers 10:33 through 36, and as they moved into the Promised Land, Joshua 3:6. Israel also brought it near to support them in the war against the tribe of Benjamin, Judges 20:26 through 27. And now in verse 3, the elders of Israel are saying, let's get the ark from Shiloh and bring it here to save us as we go up in the next battle against the Philistines. Verse 4. So the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from there the ark of the covenant of Yahweh of armies, who sits above the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. Comment. The ark was built to be portable. It's fitted with carrying poles, Exodus 25:14. Hophni and Phinehas have come to camp with it. Verse 5. When the ark of Yahweh's covenant came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, What does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean? They understood that Yahweh's ark had come into the camp. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, God has come into the camp. They said, Woe to us, for there has not been such a thing before. Woe to us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Comment: the Philistines' fear of Yahweh is the fulfillment of Exodus 9:16. 350 years ago, God told Moses that he would show his power in Egypt to the point that, quote, my name may be declared throughout the earth, end quote. Word of Yahweh's power, especially the parting of the Red Sea, spread to all the nations at that time, including Philistia, Exodus 15:14. Not even the Philistines have forgotten it, but they are a little confused because in verse 8 they credit the delivery from Egypt to Israel's multiple gods. It's the Israelites who have confused them because the Israelites do in fact worship multiple gods and idols at this point, as we'll see. Israel's failing to give testimony to the one true God. Going on, the Philistines are still talking among themselves. Verse 9. Be strong and behave like men, O you Philistines, that you not be servants to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Strengthen yourselves like men and fight. The Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and each man fled to his tent. There was a very great slaughter, for 30,000 footmen of Israel fell. God's ark was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. Comment: never in history has the ark fallen into foreign hands until now. Verse 12. A man of Benjamin ran out of the army and came to Shiloh the same day, with his clothes torn and with dirt on his head. Comment: he ran from the battlefield to Shiloh in one day. By today's roads, that's about 28 miles. Verse 13. When he came, behold, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for God's ark. When the man came into the city and told about it, all the city cried out. Comment: he's telling the news in Shiloh as he makes his way to Eli. Verse 14. When Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, what does the noise of this tumult mean? The man hurried and came and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old. His eyes were set so that he could not see. Comment: Eli's vision's so bad now that his eyes don't fix on anything in particular. Verse 16. The man said to Eli, I am he who came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. He said, how did the matter go, my son? He who brought the news answered, Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has been also a great slaughter among the people. Your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and God's ark has been captured. When he made mention of God's ark, Eli fell from off his seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck broke, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. Comment: Eli fell backward, broke his neck, and died. He didn't fall backward at the news of his sons. It was when the man made mention of the ark that he fell backward. Verse 19. His daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to giving birth, when she heard the news that God's ark was taken and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead. She bowed herself and gave birth, for her pains came on her. About the time of her death, the women who stood by her said to her, Don't be afraid, for you have given birth to a son. But she didn't answer, neither did she regard it. Comment: the news sent Phinehas' wife into labor. She's dying in childbirth. Her attendants tried to cheer her up with news of a boy, but she takes no joy in bringing a son into a place from which she, her husband, her father-in-law, and the ark have departed, especially the ark, as we see coming up now. Verse 21. She named the child Ichabod, saying, The glory has departed from Israel, because God's ark was taken and because of her father-in-law and her husband. She said, The glory has departed from Israel, for God's ark has been taken. Comment: in verse 20, she didn't regard the news of a son. In other words, she was despondent. The news of a son didn't lift her spirits at all. Samuel's birth lifted Hannah to cloud 9, so to speak, but Ichabod's birth did nothing for Phinehas' wife. Certainly she was sad that Israel was defeated, that the Philistines would still dominate Israel, that 34,000 Israelites are dead, including her husband, her brother-in-law, and her father-in-law, and sad that she was dying and that Ichabod would be an orphan from day one. But her emphasis was on the ark. She named the boy Ichabod, which means no glory. Her last recorded words were, quote, The glory has departed from Israel, for God's ark has been taken. Of all the things on her mind at the time, that was number one. Psalm 78, 56 through 64, is a 9-verse commentary on this chapter, which gives the reasons why Yahweh allowed the Philistines to defeat Israel at this particular time. Israel provoked Yahweh to anger by turning their backs on him, worshiping idols, tempting him, rebelling against him, ignoring his testimonies, and dealing treacherously with him. They were as unreliable as a twisted bow. 1 Samuel 5 is next at landofhavilah.net. 1 Samuel 5. This is the map of 1 Samuel 4. The Philistine army encamped at Ebenezer and the Israelite army encamped in Aphek. Both locations are unknown except they're somewhere near Mizpah, 1 Samuel 7:12. Hophni and Phinehas brought the ark from Shiloh to the battlefield. The Philistines captured it, and we'll be hearing a lot more about what happened to it from there. 1 Samuel 5 is next.